follow-up video to the beef stock that I made a while ago. It's been in the freezer. I couldn't think of anything to do with it. I didn't want to just waste it on something, so I kind of thought it'll just sit in the freezer until I think of something to do with it. But I need to make a bit of space in the freezer, so I thought we better do something with it. And I need to cook a ham. So my thoughts are, what we'll do is we'll use the beef stock to cook the ham, gammon, whatever you want to call it. It's a little bit murky as the beef stock, so I kind of thought that this would be an interesting way to see if the slow simmering of the ham in the beef stock clarifies the stock a little bit, so it becomes a little bit clearer than it was. And then I was also kind of quite curious. I did have another thought about how could I clarify a stock without using egg whites and meat and that type of thing to kind of clarify it. Would just like a slow kind of even temperature clarify a stock? Would the sediment rise to, would the fats kind of come out of the stock and rise to the top of the stock, and would the sediment go down to the bottom of the stock? I don't think I've got any kind of stock to show. Alright, okay, maybe this with a little bit of explanation. So this is a jar of stock that I made. It's a little bit cloudy. I'll put it in a jar and what we can sterilise it. And some of the sediment and fats kind of come to the top, and there's not much sediment at the bottom, but I put it through a couple of layers of cloth. So I kind of thought that would it clarify it? There's going to be a little bit of agitation in the water as it simmers, so I kind of thought what we'll do is we'll put some stock in a jar with a lid on, and we'll put that in down the side of the ham, and then it'd be like another little atmosphere. So I just need to wipe the top of that and put a lid on it, and then we'll kind of see what happens, because I did think about putting it maybe in the hot cupboard at work when I'm working, so the hot cupboard's on with the heating up the plates and keeping things warm. So maybe I could just put the jar of stock in there for a few hours when it was on, and maybe that would have worked. But I kind of think, well, if I'm doing this, it's the same type of thing. So we don't boil a ham, we just slowly cook it. So that can jam, hopefully down the side of there. Hopefully down the side of there. So lid's on, and then hopefully there's enough stock to it's still just a little bit frozen. Hopefully there's enough stock to cover the gammon. Trying not to spill it everywhere. It always wants to splash. Okay, so we've got enough. I'm going to put that beef. This, I don't want. Yeah, we'll use that. That's beef fat from the top of the stock. We'll put that in as well. I don't think that's going to boil into it. As long as you don't rapidly boil things, they don't. It won't boil into it. And then just a little bit of hot water to swell out that container, and then we'll see what the stock looks like afterwards. We'll be able to kind of judge what's in the jar with how the stock kind of turns out and see if it actually does clarify it a bit. So gas on. Now the jar in the pot is in its own little atmosphere, so we don't want to boil it, bring it up to boil too quickly, because there might be a variance in the temperature of the stock that we're cooking the gammon in, and the temperature of the stock inside. So any kind of difference in temperature when you're using with glass would potentially run the risk of cracking. So it's just going to be a gentle bring up to a boiling point, and as soon as it boils, we're going to turn it down to a really slow simmer. So as we're going to do it slowly, the temperature of the stock inside the glass jar and the outside of the glass jar will hopefully stay the same, and it won't crack the glass. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Right, gammon's cooked. A good way to indicate, well, to know that a gammon is cooked is it starts to float in the stock pretty easy, and when you stick your skewer in, it wants to fall off. So we know that that's cooked. So I need to get that out. I don't know. Need to be a bit careful because it's hot. So we just need to put that in there, just so that's out of the way and safe. And then let's just use that as a lid, can't we? So we'll just dig this out gently. It has cooled down slightly. Like I haven't just turned it off and we've got the ham out straight away. So that looks pretty clear, does that? That looks pretty clear, but we need to wait until that is what we call it, has cooled down, and then we'll kind of see if there's any sediment at the bottom of that. What we're going to do with that, it looks clearer. It looks clearer. We need to get the there's a little bit of fat that's come out of the ham. We need to get that off the top, and then we need to put it in a jar. And I suppose we should really put it in a jar that's the same size as that jar, and then it's a good comparison. Because if we have a deeper jar, then there's a deeper depth of field. So the thinner something is, the more you can see through it. So if that jar here was twice as thick, it wouldn't look as clear as that another jar. Does that make sense? Yes, it does make sense. It does make sense. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll just put this extra fat and stock off the top of there. We'll just put that on there. I'm not doing that for any other reason than it's just going to sit in that container. So you don't need to see these bits really, do you? But this is how you skim fat off the top of a pan of stock. You just dip it slightly underneath the level of the fat into the ladle. So that's a bit of a life hack for you, isn't it? Well, a kitchen hack. And then I'm not basting it, I end up with loads of containers with different containers with fat in them, and I think if we can just put the fat in here, then it'll be out the way, won't it? And not in another container, and then we just collect it out the bottom, and then I'll do something with it. I'm going to make some pastry. The lard that you buy is not very, I don't know, it just has a consistency and the look of plastic about it. If you make your own lard, it's delicious, absolutely delicious. So we've got quite a lot of the fat off the top of there. That's fine. Right, I'll just pause and I'll go and get another jar that's the same size as the other one. Right, so I have a jar and a funnel, and we'll just fill this up. Get an idea. Now, this will probably be actually clearer than the other stock because liquid will have come out of the ham to make ham stock, so it probably will be clearer, but I'll just, out of my own interest, let's be honest, everything I do is out of my own interest. So yeah, it certainly looks brighter and clearer, but that's because there'll be more stock in there than we originally started off with, because then as meat cooks it loses moisture. So we'll strain it off into a container as well, and then we'll have a look at those two bits of stock tomorrow when they have set. Actually, we should taste this stock, shouldn't we? Well, this cooking liquor, not really a stock, so it's not actually had any bones in it for a while. So what does it taste like? It'll taste nice. That's delicious. That's delicious. A little bit salty. A little bit salty because it generally is with a ham when you're cooking a ham or a gammon. But we'll cook some vegetables in that, and they'll be delicious. Or you could use that for the basis of a stew. Just have to be careful with the saltiness of it. That's all. But anyway, so they're going to cook some vegetables in that, and then we'll use it for something else. But so it looks like it's kind of worked. It's got rid of some of the cloudiness out of it, and then we've got sediment on the bottom of there. So it looks like using a cloudy stock to cook a joint of meat has cleared up the stock a little bit. So I'm going to kind of say that's a success. It's a tremendous waste of stock, actually. If you're going to spend hours and hours and hours cooking a stock, it's a tremendous waste of power and of a stock. But it's kind of interesting. You know, I think that's really worked. Looking at the jar of stock here, it looks like it's really worked. It looks like it's really cleared it up. In fact, looks like a visible line in it. It looks like a line. But we'll have a look tomorrow. So it needs to cool down. It needs to set in the fridge, and then we'll have a look at what's happened to it. But I think that might actually work. But we'll talk about it tomorrow. So hopefully you'll be able to see that line. I just need to hold my camera a little bit better. Hopefully you'll be able to see the line in that, and that was the one that was put into when we were cooking the gammon. I just had to put a line behind it because it's kind of quite faint, but it looks like the that it's cleared the stock up. So by putting it in a jar and slowly simmering that jar, covered jar in water, it clarifies the stock. So fat's come to the top, so you can see some little bits of fat at the top, and then sediment's gone down to the bottom. So I don't know what kind of practical applications that kind of has, but there you go. That's the stock that we cook the ham in. So that's cleared up as well. So, but that's also, there's liquids come out of the ham, so that's kind of diluted, so therefore it will kind of look clearer. But I'd say that looks clearer than that. That looks clearer than that. But anyway, just an interesting experiment that I'm faffing around with. I'll move the camera, and then we'll have a look at the stock that's set in the container. So this is a stock. It's looking less murky. It probably needs to go through a couple of layers of a cloth, but that's pretty clear, isn't it? That's pretty clear. So we can take a quite a murky stock, and we can cook it with some ham, and it'll clean it up a little bit. So is that interesting? I don't know. I find it interesting. I suppose we really should open this one up. We're not spilling it everywhere. So it's also got a little bit watery. Maybe another spoon. So that's a lot clearer than it was. So that act of putting it in the jar and slowly simmering, I happen to be simmering it in stock. Could just do it in water. Clears up the stock. How does it taste? Like, it still tastes like the beefy stock that we made. Not much to it, actually. I don't really think it's worth making a beef stock. You don't get the vast amounts of flavour out of it that I always thought you should do. No, that's stock same as that, so there's no point testing that. So there we go. I had a theory. It works out to kind of some degree. Therefore, a success.